Have you ever wondered why the burger in the advertisement looks nothing like the burger in the box? Why the pancakes in the commercial are perfectly golden, impossibly tall, and glistening with syrup that never seems to soak in? Why the ice cream never melts under blazing studio lights? What if the food you see in advertisements is not food at all? What if it was never meant to be eaten? Never cooked, never tasted, never touched by a human hand except to be carefully arranged on a plate with tweezers? There is an entire hidden industry built around this deception. A profession dedicated to constructing meals that exist only to be photographed. And somewhere inside that industry is one trick so unexpected, so quietly widespread, that once you learn what it is, you will never look at a food advertisement the same way again. Think about the last food advertisement that made you genuinely hungry. Maybe it was a fast food commercial showing a thick burger with crisp lettuce, a perfectly melted slice of cheese draping naturally over the edge of the patty, and sesame seeds arranged on a golden bun that caught the light just right. Or perhaps it was a cereal advertisement where individual pieces floated in milk so white, and still it looked almost luminous. Did you ever stop to ask how that image was produced? How does a burger maintain structural perfection for hours under hot studio lighting? How does milk stay white and undisturbed when cereal should immediately begin to soak and sink? How does steam rise from a bowl of soup at exactly the right angle, in exactly the right quantity, on cue? The answer is that in most cases, none of what you are seeing is what you think it is. The burger patty may have been painted with shoe polish to achieve that perfect sear. The milk in the cereal bowl may be white glue, which holds its surface tension and never absorbs anything. The steam rising from the soup may be coming from a hidden heating element underneath the bowl, or from a cigarette placed just off camera. And yet every person who watches that advertisement feels a genuine physical response, appetite, desire, and the impulse to purchase. Who designs these illusions? Who spends entire careers building food that no one will ever eat? And why does this industry exist at a scale that most people have never considered? There are professionals in this world whose entire job is to make food look more beautiful than food can ever actually be. They are called food stylists. And their work begins long before a camera is switched on. A food stylist assigned to a fast food campaign may spend days sourcing individual sesame seeds of identical size, testing dozens of burger buns to find the one with the most symmetrical shape, and practicing the precise angle at which a slice of cheese must be draped to appear naturally melted without actually melting. Why does this level of detail matter? Because the human eye is extraordinarily sensitive to visual imperfection, and the human brain makes purchasing decisions faster than conscious thought can intervene. The advertisement has approximately 2 seconds to produce a physical response in the viewer. 2 seconds to make someone feel hungry, aspirational, or comforted enough to choose one product over another. That is an incredibly narrow window, and it cannot be left to the unpredictability of real food. Real food sweats under studio lighting. Real ice cream melts within minutes. Real fruit loses its color under certain wavelengths of light. Real meat turns gray when it cooks through. So what do food stylists use instead? Motor oil is sometimes brushed over pancakes to simulate syrup that catches light without soaking in. Cardboard and cotton padding are inserted inside sandwich layers to give them height and structural integrity. Fruits are sprayed with a mixture of water and glycerin to create permanent-looking dewdrops that never run. Grill marks are applied to raw or undercooked meat using a heated metal rod, because fully cooked meat shrinks and loses its visual appeal. And then there is the trick introduced at the beginning of this story, the one that connects everything. The substance that appears in more food advertisements than almost any other, hidden in plain sight, replacing an ingredient that could never survive the demands of a production shoot. How does the fake food advertising industry actually function at a professional level? It operates through a highly coordinated ecosystem of specialists who almost never appear in public conversations about advertising. At the center is the food stylist, who works alongside a creative director, a photographer or director of photography, a prop stylist, and a client representative from the brand being advertised. Each shoot is planned like a film production. Storyboards are created. Lighting is tested. The exact visual properties of every element on the plate are discussed and approved before a single piece of food is introduced to the set. Why is this level of coordination necessary? Because every second of studio time costs significant money, and every element of a food advertisement carries legal and commercial consequences. Food stylists train for years. Many have culinary backgrounds combined with formal training in visual arts or commercial photography. They understand how different foods behave under different lighting conditions. They know which materials can substitute for which ingredients without crossing legal boundaries that prohibit outright deception in food advertising. And those legal boundaries are narrower than most people assume. In many countries, regulations require that advertisements show the actual product being sold. The same burger, the same pizza, the same cereal. But the regulations say far less about how that product is prepared, enhanced, or propped during the shoot. A burger can be assembled from its genuine components, but nothing prevents a stylist from pinning the lettuce with toothpicks, painting the bun with oil to enhance its color, or positioning each ingredient with surgical precision before the shutter clicks. The result is technically the real product. But it is a version of the real product that has been engineered to a standard the actual manufacturing process could never consistently replicate. Why do brands invest so heavily in this gap between what the product looks like in an advertisement and what it looks like in a consumer's hand? What does it cost to maintain this illusion at a global scale? The global advertising industry generates revenues exceeding $700 billion annually. Food and beverage advertising accounts for one of the largest segments within that total. In the United States alone, the fast food industry spends approximately $6 billion on advertising every single year. Globally, the food and beverage sector represents hundreds of billions in marketing expenditure. Each of those dollars is ultimately in service of a single goal: making a product look desirable enough to choose. And visual appeal is the most powerful driver of food purchase decisions. Studies in consumer psychology consistently demonstrate that the appearance of food influences perception of taste before a single bite is taken. Brighter colors signal freshness. Perfect geometry signals quality. Glistening surfaces signal richness. Food manufacturers understand this so thoroughly that entire product development pipelines now include aesthetic engineering, designing how a product looks, not just how it tastes. The photography and film production supporting these aesthetics represent a significant industry on its own. A single food advertisement campaign for a major brand can cost between $500,000 and several million dollars to produce. Inside that budget, the food styling department is not a footnote. It is a critical production function. Consider how many food products are advertised globally at any given moment. Cereals, fast food, frozen meals, snack foods, beverages, condiments, restaurant chains. Every category produces advertising continuously. Every advertisement featuring food requires a food stylist. Every food stylist uses techniques and materials that the average consumer has never been told about. How many of those materials are things you would recognize? And how many are things you would never expect to find on a dinner table? Return now to the clue. The substance that appears in more food advertisements than almost any other, hiding inside the most familiar images in commercial food marketing. Think about every cereal advertisement you have ever seen. The bowl is full. The cereal pieces are arranged at the surface, partially submerged, looking crisp and light. The liquid beneath them is brilliantly white, perfectly still, with a slightly thick surface quality that looks almost too perfect to be real. Now ask the question: what liquid behaves that way? What liquid stays white under studio lighting without yellowing? What liquid maintains a perfectly flat, undisturbed surface while cereal pieces rest on top rather than sinking? What liquid photographs as brighter and more luminous than actual dairy milk ever does under professional lighting conditions? The answer is white glue. Plain, white craft glue, diluted slightly to achieve the right viscosity, behaves on camera exactly as milk is supposed to behave but never actually does. It does not absorb the cereal. It does not create a wet, soggy appearance. It does not shift or slosh during long exposure shots. It sits perfectly still and photographs as the idealized version of milk that every cereal brand wants consumers to associate with their product. Why does this matter beyond the technical curiosity of a production trick? Because it reveals something deeper about the relationship between food advertising and consumer expectation. The image in the advertisement sets a standard. A standard that is not just slightly enhanced but structurally impossible to meet with the actual product. And yet that image is what drives purchasing decisions, brand loyalty, and emotional associations with food across an entire lifetime of consumption. What else in the frame is not what it appears to be? Here is the full picture. White glue in cereal bowls. Motor oil on pancakes. Glycerin droplets on fruit. Cardboard inside sandwiches. Shoe polish on burger patties. Hairspray on grapes. These are not isolated tricks used by a few rogue photographers. They are standard tools of a professional industry operating at global scale, governed by legal frameworks that permit enhancement while technically prohibiting outright substitution. The mysterious clue was never really hidden. It was sitting in plain sight inside every advertisement, every commercial, every fast food campaign that has ever made you feel hungry despite knowing the product would never look that way in real life. The glue in the cereal bowl is the purest expression of what food advertising actually is, not a representation of a product, but a construction of a feeling of abundance, freshness, and quality that the product itself is designed to evoke but rarely fully delivers. Food stylists are not fraudsters. They are craftspeople operating within an industry that has decided, collectively and commercially, that the feeling of food matters more than its accurate representation. The brands profit from the feeling. The stylists are paid to construct it. And the consumer receives an image so persuasive it influences behavior before rational thought has a chance to intervene. That is not an accident. That is the business. So the next time you see a food advertisement, a glistening burger, a perfect bowl of cereal, a scoop of ice cream that defies gravity and temperature, ask yourself what you are actually looking at. Is that steam real? Is that milk real? Is that perfect, unblemished surface the result of cooking, or the result of hours of preparation by a team of specialists whose names never appear in the credits? The food advertising industry has built an entire economy around a single, powerful principle: that human beings respond to visual perfection with desire, and desire drives purchase. The gap between the image and the product is not a flaw in the system. It is the system. And as long as a beautifully constructed photograph can make you feel genuinely hungry for something that was never meant to be eaten, that system will continue to operate, quietly and profitably, inside every advertisement you will ever see. The real question is not whether the food in advertisements is fake. The real question is, knowing that it is, does it still make you hungry?